You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today we have another amazing show. Man, today we're going to talk to an amazing entrepreneur. He's not just that, though. He does a lot of things, man. Realtor, podcast host. He's a social media expert. His name is John Mendez. He has an amazing podcast, Walk to Wealth. And man, first and foremost, just want to say welcome you to the show, John. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well today. I'm excited for our conversation. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us today.
Man, I love your podcast. I listen to a few shows, and I like how it's helping those who are really serious about that entrepreneurship, lifestyle, and that making that jump and taking it by literally the information that you provide on your show through the guests and yourself. So kind of tell us a little bit about, your business and what inspires you to take the path you're taking.
Yeah, so for a little bit of context, so I grew up in the projects. It was 9 of us in a 2-bedroom. My mother, she suffered from mental health issues. My dad, he was absent for majority of my life. So my grandparents from my mom's side of the family, the Dominican side, that's where I get all my flavor from, right? They raised me. They don't know any English. So money was always tight growing up. And fast forward a little bit, we grew up, we had Section 8 too, like definitely not the best upbringing, but nevertheless, it made me who I am. And this is now fall 2020. So the pandemic already kind of took over the world. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book shifted my paradigm. And it made me realize that there's another way of viewing the world out there that wasn't being taught in school. And I was in college at the time, but it was from home because everything with the pandemic. As I said, I learned from that book that there was something out there that wasn't being taught in schools, wasn't being taught at home, wasn't being taught in my environment. So that winter break between fall and spring, I decided to say, hey, let me just jump down this rabbit hole, started reading books, listening to podcasts myself, YouTube videos, you name it. I was listening and consuming information. So when I came back that spring semester, of course, classes were still online. This is now spring 2021. And I was like, well, I can't unsee all the knowledge that I learned. So with the whole world being uncertain, the only thing I was certain of was myself. So I decided to bet on me and decided to leave college and been kind of chasing this entrepreneurial dream ever since.
Man, that's bold. So you left college to chase your dream. I mean, that takes boldness, man. Did you have any mentors that, kind of warmed this up a little bit, or did you say, no, cold turkey, I'm out of here, let's go?
Yeah, so the idea to drop out was super easy. I went to college for 2 things: learn how to live on my own and to network. And so with classes being online, everyone would just wake up for their 8 a.m.s and their 9 a.m.s, turn on Zoom, and then go back to sleep because you couldn't force anyone to have their cameras on. So it's not like I was networking and I'm taking classes from my bed. So it's like, not like I was learning how to live on my own. So my 2 reasons for going to school were wiped out. So that made the decision dropping out super easy. Of course, my grandparents, they're the traditional immigrants. So it's like their pinnacle of American success is graduating from college. But to be fair, I wasn't going to college for them anyways. I was going to college for me. They lived their life. God bless them with a life already. And now it's time for me to live mine. So I was never looking to live my life for anybody's satisfaction or approval or anything like that. So that made it easy. But around that time when I did drop out, though, a little bit more context. I tried to get into wholesaling, which is in real estate terms, pretty much you see someone else, let's say you want to sell your house, right? You want to sell it for 100,000. I get it under contract. I find an end buyer that wants to buy it for 110. I keep the $10,000 difference. End buyer gets the property. You sell your house. No, that's pretty much it. No credit needed. No real estate license needed. And I spoke to a couple of attorneys, and they pretty much most of them told me like, yeah. They didn't know what they were talking about. Then there was one guy who sounded like he knew what he was talking about. And he pretty much told me, you can't do that. It's illegal to transact in real estate without a real estate license. He was extremely by the book. You can wholesale real estate, at least in Connecticut. You just have to make sure you stay off market. At the time, he was a professional though, so I was discouraged for a little while. This is leading up to me dropping out. Then this one guy who was kind of like my mentor for a little while, one of my boys was going to hop on a call with him, and then they invited me to the call as well. And at the end of the call, he was like, you need to find a mentor. And so right after the call, I just emailed him like, hey, can you be my mentor? And so pretty much he was like, yeah. And that's where I got the idea to sign up for my real estate class and drop out. So around that same time when I found him, he kind of resparked because he was in commercial real estate. He resparked that real estate flame in me. And that's what made me sign up for my course and never go back to my college courses.
Man, forget a TED Talk. You just got one right here by John himself, man. That's dope. Man, that is so cool. I mean, man, all right, so we got to rewind that tape just a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, were you studying a lot of real estate? What made you say, you know what, this is like a very great potential for me to get involved with?
So around that time period, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book. And all the podcasts, all the YouTube videos, they all kind of seem to point back to real estate some way, shape, or form. And with the wholesaling class, it was like no credit needed. I bought a $500 course. I got my LLC created. I got my logo created. I got my domain name. I bought that, and I was ready to get it popping. And for me, once I heard the attorney, as I said at the time, he was the professional, so I didn't know that we could wholesale. When he told me that I couldn't, I was like, dang, there goes my real estate idea that I had going. And then once I talked to that guy, the mentor, and he was talking about getting a real estate license, I was like, okay. So I wanted to get into public speaking. It was like a thought in the back of my head. So I was like, okay, I've tried to get into investing. That didn't work out. Now I'm going to sign up for my real estate course. I'm going to get my license. Around that time, I was at K Jewelers. That was my first ever sales job. It's retail sales, so it's not like it's full on commission sales, but it's still like baby step sales. Like it's your entry into sales. And so I was there, I was helping people get engagement rings. And I was like, okay, these people are super happy buying a couple $1,000 rings and they're like extremely joyful.
Yeah.
Imagine I help someone with a house. That's like the largest transaction ever. I was like, okay, here's my game plan. This is at that time. I'm going to get into real estate, get my license, start selling houses, become rookie of the year, top selling agent, use the money to start getting into investments, and then use the credibility as a top agent to start getting my way at, opening opportunities to start public speaking. Because if I thought I needed to be credible in some field, in some regard, for people to even want to even consider listening to me speak. So that was the game plan at that point in my life.
Man, and you doing it. See, that's why I like people like you on this show, because you are doing it. I mean, I read your bio and, you kind of disguising a little bit some of your successes, man. But I mean, that mindset that you have, I mean, obviously, like I said, you're living your lifestyle. You're doing this. You're not just thinking about it. You're not dreaming about it. You're being about it. And even though you had some bumps in the roads along the way, you're still here and you're doing your thing. I feel like your podcast is great. But what I just got from you, your story, is even greater, because it's like, wow, if he can do it, shoot, let me get into the real estate game. I mean, did you listen to people like Grant Cardone? I mean, did you listen to anyone who had a podcast or a YouTube channel that kind of broke down some tips and tricks for being in the real estate game? Or were you just kind of like solo dolo with your mentor and let's just find out ourselves?
Yeah, so my mentor relationship ended kind of around the time when I actually got licensed. So he helped me get into real estate. But from there, as I said, he was in commercial, I was in residential. So there wasn't too much resonance beyond that. And so we kind of lost touch. But from there, I really listened to a lot of Bigger Pockets. That was probably the first real estate podcast that I started listening to. And then from there, what really got me into, what really helped me grow was there was this one mastermind called Pivot Shift Ahead. And it's a KW mastermind, but it's open to agents from wherever. They have their Facebook group that has over 110,000 followers, or people in the group. And I was just in that group, and they have a daily Zoom call. Started hopping on those, and even before I started really focusing on real estate, like I would be at K Jewelers. I was working around the time I got licensed, like doing like 55 hours between K Jewelers and a restaurant. So I didn't really have time for real estate, although I got my license. And I would just be on like Zoom calls. And I would have my laptop from not my laptop, my iPad from K Jewelers, because they gave everyone in the store iPad. And I would put my iPad from home in front of it. And so it would look like I'm on a K Jewelers iPad doing work, and I'm there on Zoom calls on my own iPad and using the K Jeweler iPad as cover. And so that way I could get some more training, get some more learning. So that's kind of how I was doing it. I was getting started. But Jeff Glover is one of the guys that I definitely took a lot from. This guy, Brandon Turner was another big one. This guy named Graham Stephan, he's a big YouTube guy. I learned a lot from him when I was first getting started. And then that Pivot Shift Mastermind. There's another one called Early Birds Talking Real Estate. So those are some of the masterminds that I really started looking into when I first, pardon me, when I first got started.
I mean, I feel like people listening to this, they're gonna be like, you know what? I'm starting. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going the real estate game. Because I mean, yeah, this is very inspiring because it's like, man, you're doing it, and I don't mean sound weird when I say that. It's just like you're living the life that you know were dreaming, and it sounds like the whole thing is that you were committed, like whatever it took, you know, you being creative, using resources you had with other places and always tapping into what is my next task that I need to get done. I mean,
Yeah.
that takes a special commitment because I'm sure it wasn't, fireworks, on day one or day two. This was a process. How did you keep yourself like focused when everything's got rough and tight for you?
Yeah, so here's the plot twist. So real estate wasn't working out. I was not focused at all of 2022. So
Okay.
I got licensed, what now? I got licensed in September of 2021. Now, around the time where I left K Jewelers, now this is November. So December of 2021 is when I started the podcast. So I started doing that. And then January, I taught my first social media course. That first course it was a class, a webinar actually, that had over like 440 people sign up for that. And so I was at the restaurant. I was trying to get the real estate stuff going. I was doing this social media teaching and classes that I was hosting. I was trying to get I was getting the podcast going. I was started dropping weekly episodes. And so 2022 in a nutshell was just shiny in object syndrome. I was extremely distracted. I was not focused at all. And I thought because I was young, I'm hungry, I'm figuring it out, I'm a entrepreneur. I thought all these things I could just handle the load and I could carry the weight of the world on my shoulders and I'll be good. And I figured it out because I'm determined. And I was extremely naive. This business world is no joke. Entrepreneurship is no joke. Real estate is no joke. You have to wear all of the hats when you're a solopreneur. And I thought that I could do that for then multiple businesses at the same time, and it did not work out at all. Real estate, I wasn't closing any deals. I closed a couple rentals, and then all my leads that I would get, because I wasn't scared of prospecting. I could cold call, I could, door knock, whatever you need me to. I can go do it out there, get clients. I just wouldn't follow up. So they would fall through the cracks. And then with the social media thing, I was teaching all these classes and getting hundreds of people to sign up. I was like, okay, let me turn this into a business. And so I was going to do content creation services. And then next thing you know, after my very first client, I'm like, I'm already creating content for myself. I don't want to do this for other people. So then,
Right.
boom, had to scrap that idea. And then with the podcast for a certain point in time, like month after month after month, for like almost 3, 4 months straight, my podcast numbers are going down, despite me posting almost 1 to 3 reels a day and posting a episode a week consistently. So it was like a certain point in time, it wasn't until someone really told me, like, John, you expecting full-time results from part-time effort. And my bandwidth was spread so thin across all these different things. And it took a lot of ego in check, but I had to realize, like, I can do it all, just not at the same time. And that was a really big ego hit for me because, as I said, I thought I was a young, hungry entrepreneur, so I could figure it all out. And that is not how it played out. And the entrepreneurship world humbled me real quick.
Man, you just dropped some gems right there. We're talking to John Mendez, and man, you just dropped something epic right there. I can't do it all at the same time. Man, because I want to really like point that out because I think that's a big issue in today's world. We want to do everything. We want to be famous. We want to be this. We want to be popular. We want to have followers. We want to have, obviously, money to, live a lifestyle or whatever. But I think you hit something that's very important. You can't do all these things all at once. You got to, have priorities and have a, sense of, balance with your time management, right? So for you, how did you distinguish where to put your most important to-do list, and organize it so that way you can position yourself for the next opportunity?
Yeah, so this re I guess period of self-discovery all over again happened because I went through it the first time when I Rich Dad Poor Dad and I broke into entrepreneurship. But then I had to kind of re-go through that process again. So around the September of last year, I read this book called The Purpose Factor. And then from there, I was like, it dropped a lot of unconventional nuggets. Like one of the big things I love from that book is the dictionary definition of the word passion is a barely controllable emotion. So a lot of times people tell you pursue your passion, you replace it with his dictionary definition, pursue your barely controllable emotion. Not the best advice. So that book hit me. I was like, dang, I got to start rethinking all this. That's when I had the idea for the social media thing and to turn the webinars into some type of content creation service. I was like, okay, let me just turn the social media thing into a business. Maybe it's not real estate. And then from there, after that first client, like I said earlier, I was like, yeah, nope, that's not it. So I came across this concept called Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. And the people where this concept originates from, these people have the longest life expectancy on the planet.
Mm.
And so essentially it's the four circles and it stands for your reason for being. So when these four circles intersect, that's when you found your ikigai, which is your reason for being. So it's what you love to do intersected with what does the world need, intersected with what you can be rewarded for, intersected with what you're good at. And when those four circles intersect in the middle, that is your ikigai, that is your reason for being, that is your purpose. And so for me, I was trying to pick up the opportunity phone call for all of the phones that were ringing with the real estate, the social media, the this, the that, everything, right? I had shiny object syndrome, crazy. And what I've realized was that I can't have a conversation with picking up all these phones at the same time. I just got to pick up one phone and talk to that one thing. And that one thing for me ended up being the podcast. And then from there, around December of last year, I started becoming a lot more intentional, a lot more focused. And from there, the podcast started jumping off a little bit and started opening up doors for opportunities that were way bigger than I ever expected.
Man, see that right there, man, you're a great storyteller. Because if I would have skipped all those scenes, it just went right into your podcast. So I'm glad you took the time to kind of lead all those, paths into what you're doing right now. Because I mean, it takes a lot of work. Let's just be real. This is not something that you just, oh, that'd be nice, and then like life just gives you, ice cream and rainbows and shade when it's hot outside. No, it gets real. And but for you, I know we kind of touched on it, but I want to touch on it, again. When storms came, when doubts started to creep in, how did you manage yourself to say, all right, I just got to pull through this, and these hard times won't last forever?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I had a couple times last year where I really just sat down and I was like, yo, what am I doing? All the things that people say, oh, John, you're doing so great. Oh, the bio looks nice. I had hired a person from Fiverr to write my bio. That's why it looks it comes off so well, right? So it's like all these different things from the outside looking in. It's like John got it figured out. John got it booming. John's doing so amazing. But in reality, everything was crumbling right before me. And it's like, yo, what am I doing with myself? And it's those moments where you got to really sit there and it's like, man, how am I getting in my own way? And for me, my big thing was procrastination.
That's good.
And what a procrastination allowed me to do, though, this is why procrastination was my biggest blessing. It allowed me to reflect. And sometimes we procrastinate because things are hard. Sometimes we procrastinate because things are scary, because we may not feel adequate or capable of completing the task at hand. But there's some times where we procrastinate because what we're doing isn't in alignment with what we're supposed to really be doing. And that was my issue. I wasn't in alignment. I was trying to do all these different things because they were good ideas. Not every opportunity is your opportunity, right? They're saying it's not all money is good money, right? So for me, once I realized that it was the podcast that I really wanted to do, I was like, man, okay, let me just try to do something. Let me just work on one thing. Let me just pick this one thing and focus solely on that and sees where it takes me. And then from there, when I was able to check my ego and put the ego aside and realize that I just need to double down and see where the results, see where it takes me and not worry about the immediate short-term results. Because I could have easily got into real estate, You know how many people told me like, "Hey, John, what's your average price at homes?" My average price right now in my area is 800,000. So if you do the math at 3% commission after taxes and commission splits from my broker, a $800,000 house, I sell one house, I'm taking away like 15,000.
Mm.
So I could sell one house and make that. That's more money than most people see in months.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I chase the check and the commission in the short term, or do I chase fulfillment? And so I decided to choose fulfillment because I have a long life ahead of me, God willing. And that's why I decided to go on the podcast. Is really was figuring out that, hey, I was distracted. I never gave myself a fair chance. Let me just give myself a fair chance and see what it would look like if I went all in on one thing and only one thing without being distracted.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's interesting. So I have to ask you. I know you have your Walk to Wealth podcast. We'll touch on that in a second. But do you still dabble into real estate more, or have you continued to still be in the real estate world, or are you just pausing that for a moment, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's solely for referrals.
Okay.
Only referrals. I'm referring out everything.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Well, let's get into Walk to Wealth because, like I said, I listened to a few episodes and I love how your guests just really go right to the storyline, the blueprint, because I feel like that's what people enjoy the most. They enjoy that educational piece on shows. Kind of describe the audience your core mission for your show and the types of guests you have on.
Yeah, so my core mission for the show is to enlighten and empower young adults to build wealthy, abundant lives. It's to fill the gap that I had in me that I had to go through hundreds of hours of YouTube videos and podcast episodes and books and things like that. That's what I'm providing for my listeners. Pretty much what I was missing in my life, what I wish someone would have taught me. And the reason why my show is so different is because let's think of a boat analogy, right? Right now, where I'm at in my journey, I'm still at the dock. I'm still loading up my ship. I haven't set sail yet, but I'm documenting the journey still in real time as I'm about to set sail. A lot of people set sail, go ghost under the radar, set sail, and now they're all the way out at sea, and they're like, "Hey, I made it. Come on board. Come where I'm at."
Yeah.
And it's not saying that's a bad thing, but I'd rather not wait until I'm quote unquote successful to start giving back, to start helping out. I want to do it in real time to show people that, hey, I'm still where you guys are at. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out on my own, myself. Like I'm still trying to pave a way for myself and break out of this rat race, this traditional route. And so my main four pillars really are real estate, entrepreneurship, mindset, and personal finance. Mindset, because no matter what book you read, they always tell you the same thing. Mindset's where it starts. Personal finance, because if you're not a good steward of your own money, good luck dealing big amounts of money. Entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship and business ownership has created the most billionaires. It also allows you to live a life on your own terms. And then real estate, you read any wealth building book, they all tell you got to be in real estate, investing in real estate some way, shape, or form. So those are my four pillars.
I'm a co-sign the coolness of your podcast, Walk to Wealth, because I listened one episode. I'm like, man, I can listen to another one. And then I listen to another episode. I'm like, you know what? Dang, I can listen to another one. Because great podcasts, shows and hosts like yourself, you just know how to capture the listener, and that's very important when you're recreating any kind of experience with a brand or a platform. You're capturing the person that's listening to you or being exposed to your platform. That value that cannot be substituted with anything else, because people can tell if it's just gonna be another typical show. Just to be real.
Yeah.
But when you have that secret sauce that you and others have, it's that realness. You being yourself, you being real, and you're adding those educational moments for us to really take action on.
It's the storytelling piece, man. You could tell a good story. You can move mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Man, once again, we're talking to John Mendez. You can go to his website. It's super easy. It's walktowealth.com. Check out his podcast. And man, you you got big things coming, man. I'm gonna be listening to your shows because I want to join the journey too of just getting myself, educated on all the talking points that you have on your show. For our listeners, what's a good call to action that they can do to continue to support you in your journey?
Yeah, so if the podcast is not enough information for you and you want to take it a little bit further, I got a free training. It's the 4 businesses you got to start before you start your dream business. A lot of time we get into entrepreneurship, we got this burning idea inside of us, and then we try it and then it goes south. And it's not because our idea sucks. A lot of times it's just because we're not taught this business world stuff, this entrepreneur stuff, how to really maneuver the game outside of the 9 to 5. So it's copywriting, PR, paid media, and arbitrage. Those are the 4 businesses. And we go in depth in the free training. It's bit.ly/walk to wealth gift. It's my gift to all you guys if you want to get a little bit further, or connect with me on all the social media channels. That's on my website.
Man, I hope everyone listen to this, share this with a friend, and go support what this guy's doing. John Mendez, check out his podcast, Walk to Wealth. And man, please leave 5 stars on his podcast. That helps it rank. That helps it get more exposure and helps him get even more guests on his show. So man, I want to say thank you to, you, John Mendez, for taking time and talking to us today, man.
Man, it was a pleasure being here. You're a great host, and I appreciate the podcast and the work you put into it from one podcast into another, man.